Hello, class. My name is Veronica Mendoza, and I choose to make my presentation over virtual meetings. The reason I chose this initially was because of the pandemic and how it seemed like everyone was doing virtual meetings. So first, I want to go over just some general statistics, and that virtual meetings have been used for a long time, even before the pandemic. I found some websites that showed that websites like Microsoft Teams had 13 million users worldwide in 2019. But of course, due to the pandemic, the users skyrocketed, and I found that 894, and it grew 894 in total in June of 2020. And of course, there are many benefits that come with virtual meetings, but there are also challenges, and I'll discuss those a bit further. And I also wanted to show this graphic because it shows just how many users were on Microsoft Teams and how it grew very quickly. There are a lot of benefits to hosting meetings on virtual platforms. One of them is that it's a great alternative for in-person meetings. Like I said earlier, due to the pandemic, there were a lot of employers who did make that switch from working in the office to working at home, and they were able to make that switch with ease due to or with the help of platforms like Zoom and Microsoft Teams. I also found that virtual meetings tend to be more efficient as it is acknowledged that people don't want to stay online longer than they have to. So hosts come and have a pre-plan of what they're going to talk about, and that makes meetings way more efficient. They also have the ability to keep everyone on mute, so the host can go through all of the meeting and leave a specific time to ask questions, and that makes the meeting go by smoother. However, if an attendee does want to chime in, there are options like you could raise your hand, and that's a great way to quietly show that you want to speak, and thus makes the meetings go by quicker. Another benefit is that sharing and receiving information is much easier online than it is in person. For example, in regular meetings, there are logistics that you have to consider, like where will you host the meeting? Is the place that you have big enough to hold all of the attendees? So that's one of the benefits of hosting a virtual meeting, is that you can have a lot of people joining a meeting and not have to worry about that. And also, the attendees are able to hear and see everything very clearly because they can see the host. So lastly, I want to speak about some of the challenges that come with virtual meetings. So the main overall challenge I found is that cognitive load is much higher through video chats. For example, in regular face-to-face interaction, nonverbal communication is something that we do automatically. And we use gestures and nonverbal signals to show or to get our point across. However, it is much more difficult to get our point across that way through virtual platforms. So we have to be more mindful, or we might have to exaggerate some of our gestures. For example, if we want to show that we agree with somebody, we would have to nod our head and show some thumbs up. And that constant mindfulness may cause fatigue because we constantly have to be thinking about if we're getting our point across and if we're being understood. The last thing that I want to talk about is the fatigue that can come from seeing ourselves during video chats constantly. So there's a study that shows a mirrored version of yourself is a design detail that most platforms use, like Zoom and Microsoft Teams. But when you see yourself, you are more critical of yourself, and many of us are now seeing ourselves on video chat for hours on end. And it's taxing, it's stressful. There's a lot of research that shows negative and emotional consequences to seeing a mirror of yourself constantly. And lastly, these are my references. And that is it. Thank you for watching.